Well, we are more than excited to have our next main stage speakers of this morning. Eric and Brittany Highland are two of our dearest friends. We spent our last fall hanging out with them in San Marcos, and I think I've mentioned this before, but Eric and I, and Brittany and Alyssa, we would all go on morning walks around the campground together and talk about life and business and everything. And one morning we were walking around and told Eric, I think it'd be cool to do a meetup for RVers. And he was like, you know, y'all are in Texas, you have friends here, you know, at the very least, like, y'all should just plan something for February. This was in, like, October or something like that.
It was October.
And I just, it was really the push and encouragement that I needed to make for us to make the leap to do something like this. So we're here largely in part because of the encouragement from these two people. So if you want to give them a round of applause, they're very much a part of this whole event. Yeah, thank you guys. So Eric and Brittany are here today to talk about blogging, and it's something that they do professionally. They lead a large team of bloggers in Austin, one of the largest blogs in Austin. It reaches millions and millions of people, and so these guys absolutely know what they're doing. And so whether you're at the beginning stages of blogging or you're a bit later, there's always something I learn as I listen to these two people speak. So please give it up for our next main stage speakers, Eric and Brittany Highland.
4 years ago this week, we started our full-time RVing journey. Thank you. And 2 years before that is when we started blogging before we even went on the road. We're Eric and Brittany Highland. We're really excited to be here this morning and to be a small part of this event. Hello to everyone on Facebook. We're really glad that you're joining in too. So our RV story, how did we even get here today? So it really became a question not of why, but of why not.
Yeah, three years ago, before we started RVing, we had our own company, and we were helping small businesses with their online marketing and their social media. And we wanted to find a way to transition that into full-time RVing, just like many of you who are here today. During that time, we built relationships with our clients. We really got to know them. We would go and have barbecues at their houses. We knew their kids' names. We became Uncle Eric and Aunt Brittany. And so as we developed those relationships and we told them about our dream and our idea of getting out on the road, they were actually excited for us. So we didn't lose any clients. Matter of fact, we still have a lot of those clients today. So the why became why not.
Right, but it was a multi-year process of building that loyalty with our clients. And in the meantime, we had our blog about the city of Austin, but we were still writing all the articles. And there was really no way to maintain what we were doing without building a team. And so that was the other part of the puzzle for us, was building up a team of writers who could stay on the ground and go out to do the stories to keep the blog going, because it was very important to us to make that happen. And so we set out at the time in our 2004 Tiffin Phaeton diesel pusher.
Which we still have.
Which we still have. We have added a human being to our traveling troupe,
Baby Nomad.
And we picked up 2 cats along the way. We rescued them from campgrounds.
Rhythm and Blues.
Rhythm and Blues. And we still have an RV, so that's great. All right, so we want to give you a little background about what our blogs are about, how they started, why they started, before we get into all the lessons that we've learned during this process.
So many of you know us from RV Wanderlust. I know some of you know that we run the Austinot, but for those of you that don't, we are the founders of the Austinot. It's one of the top-ranked blogs about the city of Austin, and we have a team of 10 writers, 27 photographers, 2 editors, and we reach millions of people around the world on the Austinot.
And our niche with the Austinot, which we really wanted to define, because we were not the first blog about Austin. There are even more now than there were then. And so we had to ask ourselves, what is going to make us different and set us apart? And what that is that we're a hyper-local blog about the city, which means that we only write about people, companies, events, musicians that were originally founded in Austin and continue to be based there. And that is what sets us apart from our competition. And we've turned down a lot of opportunities, whether for sponsorship or in-kind goodies or going to things, because we were being asked by companies that weren't from our city. And we take this very, very seriously, to the point that we have turned down those opportunities.
Yeah. All right, so we have 2 other blogs. You know us, many of you know us as RV Wanderlust, And RV Wanderlust, like Brittany said, is just a travel log of what we do. We really don't put as much into RV Wanderlust as you would think. I would say about 80% or more of our blogging time is focused on the Ostinaut because that's our main blog. And then about a year ago, I'm obsessed with Jeeps. So I created this little blog called Jeepsies, which is a play on the word gypsies since we travel full time. And there's some interesting data that we're going to show you about this.
Yeah, so let's take a look at this, comparing the 3 blogs side by side. So the Ostinaut is 6 years old. We have over 1,600 articles on there, and our page views are about 1.5 million a year on average. And our social love, which is just the combination of our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram communities, is around 85,000 people.
Meanwhile, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, meanwhile, RV Wanderlust has been online for 4 years. We only have 150 articles. But we get about 200,000 page views a year on RV Wanderlust, and our social love is 12,200.
And it's worth taking a beat here to compare the page views with the number of posts. So the Ostinaut, it's really amazing the number of page views that we bring in because we have collected so many articles over time. And it's just that cumulative effect. We have our articles that get thousands of page views a month, and we drop down into 3 digits, and then we drop down into double and single digits. But because we have 1,600 articles, we're bringing in all of those page views.
I'm on Google Analytics all day long watching Ostinaut. I can tell in real time where people are visiting us from. I can see people visiting us from Africa and India and all over the United States and Australia and Europe. You know, those people are probably people that are coming to visit Austin, maybe for something like South by Southwest. But when I'm watching this, I'm also able to go down and see what pages they're looking at, and it's fascinating to watch because, like Brittany said, we'll have the ones that'll get 20,000 page views, 10,000 page views, but there's a massive bulk of people who are looking deep into our blog, and when you get into the triple digits like 100, 200, 300, or even 10s and 20s up to 90, that list goes on forever, and these are on daily based numbers, and we're going to talk about evergreen content later on and why it's so important.
And then Jeepsies, like we said, is only a year old, and it only has 16 articles on it. Eric has not done very much with those articles, but look at this number, and this blows my mind.
Now, wait a minute. What this tells you is that I'm a very good blogger, right?
Or there's something else going on. And I mean, it's almost half the number of page views that RV Wanderlust had last year, and the number of articles is not even close. And there's 2 things going on here that it's worth talking about.
The first one is supply and demand. So one of the things that I do whenever I'm going to start a blog, and this is something that you'll want to think about if you're starting a blog, is who's already supplying what it is that you provide. Okay, and so I went and I looked. I bought a Jeep. I got this Rubicon. I wanted to get in the Jeep culture, and I started looking for other people like myself who may have created a personal Jeep blog. And believe it or not, there was probably less than a handful of personal Jeep bloggers out there. In other words, there were companies and there were corporations that were putting out things. There were aftermarket companies that were putting out blogs, but there wasn't the John or the Heidi or the Heather that were putting out and saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. And so when I created this, there was a massive demand for it. And you can see that right there in the page views.
And it was shocking to me that the blogs weren't out there on a topic as popular as Jeeps with a community as large as it is. And I really feel that we stumbled on a gold mine here that we're really excited about building on.
And to put it in perspective, my Jeep is actually now a sponsored Jeep. So there's a lot of aftermarket companies that go out there and they want you to have their stuff on there. I've got 16 articles. My Jeep is already sponsored by 2 different companies.
Mm-hmm. And so the other part that I wanted to share about why I think this page view number is so high is just because of how Eric hustles on social media. And so he was very, very intentional about not only starting the Jeepsies Facebook page, but getting entrenched in the Austin Jeep clubs, national clubs that have a Twitter presence. And now he started the Coast Guard Jeep Club, which is a national club, and he has dozens of chapters that he's built in the past 4 months. But what he's doing is he's building this online community so that every one of those 16 articles that he's put out there, he has a place to share it, which has resulted in this high number of page views.
Okay, here's the big shocker. Don't everybody leave at once.
So we do not blog to make money. But I don't want to confuse the two. It doesn't mean that we don't make money through our blogs. But when we started the Ostinaut, RV Wanderlust, and Jeepsies, our overall reason for starting those blogs was not to make money. We have other ways of bringing in income. So first of all, Eric is retired military. He served for 20 years in the United States Coast Guard. And so in addition to his retirement income, we also have health and dental benefits through his service. We also have our company Connection. Please write down the name of it. We're going to be coming back to it in a moment about how we want to answer your questions moving forward from today.
And just for the record, this is not a sales pitch. We're not looking to sell you anything or get any money from you, but write that name down because we want to be able to answer your questions long after the summit, and we do that for free on our Facebook site.
And so Connection is a boutique online marketing company. We have a handful of clients. They have been with us for years. We're largely providing them with social media management and also consulting on a variety of topics like blogging and even social media for those who may want to continue to handle it themselves, but they just want a little bit of guidance. And then I put the Ostinaut on there because, like I said, we do make income through our blogs, which I'll be going over in a moment.
So if we don't blog to make money, Brittany, why do we blog?
So I'm going to go over 5 reasons that we blog, and it puts the wind in my sails to talk about them. These 5 reasons, before I go into them, they don't only apply to us. So please, as you're listening, be evaluating in your mind how they can apply to you as well. And so the first one is credibility. So the reason that we started the Ostinaut, which we probably should have mentioned, was because we were bringing Connection to a new city, to Austin. We didn't have a client base there. And so we started the Ostinaut originally to show our potential clients, this is what we can do for you, but it's on a topic that you can relate to because it's about your city. And so through the Ostinaut, we built credibility as experts in our field of online marketing. And this really applies to any industry. It's not just travel. It's not just about things to do. If you're a counselor, you can have a blog on your website where you're writing about things that have to do with your industry, things that you talk to your clients about, that you have recurring questions from them about, and you're basically saying through your blog, I know what I'm talking about. Hire me. I'm here. And so blogging is a great way to build credibility as an expert in your field.
The second one is influence, and I'm going to tell you a little story. So we do a lot of public speaking, especially for the Ostinaut, and I was speaking in front of about 400, 450 people at the AT&T Center, and I was walking up, and we had these credentials just like you have right here, and mine said Ostinaut, Eric Highland, and I was going up to speak, and there was this little old lady, and she was sitting in the front row, and she was clutching her purse. I'd never seen her before in my life. I was walking up in front of all these 400 people, and she just jumped out of her seat and gave me a hug. Now, I never met this lady in my life. I was like, oh my gosh, who are you? My name's Eric, you know? And it was a little embarrassing. All these people are watching us. Apparently, she had bought the tickets to come and hear me speak, not to hear me speak. She had come to meet me because she was with a nonprofit, a very, very small nonprofit. And earlier that year, one of my writers had come up to me and pitched me an article and said, Eric, this is what I want to write about. It's this tiny little nonprofit. And it really didn't meet our criteria. I had set a list of criteria for our writers. They had to have a certain X, certain X, certain X, and they didn't meet it. But it was a cool nonprofit, and I gave him the green light. I said, you know what, I think it's a good cause. Let's go ahead and do it. That's my level of influence. I already had the millions of people reading the blog, so I said, let's go ahead and do it. He did the article, and apparently we published it on a Friday, and that weekend, that nonprofit received more donations than they had for the previous 2 years. So there are many reasons to blog, but influence is a really good one.
And we take our platform on the Ostinaut very, very seriously. We know that a negative review on our blog could ruin a small business. That's the way of the world right now. And so we do take that very seriously. But on the positive side, it's really amazing when you build an audience, how many companies are out there that want to use you as an influencer to get the word out about what they're doing. Eric recently got to go to Circuit of the Americas in Austin, which is the big racetrack there, and do the Audi driving experience.
Yeah, I got to drive an Audi R8 V10 Plus on the F1 track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people pay over $1,000 for this experience. And Eric was able to go because of the influence that we built through the Ostinaut. And he did an Instagram story. That's what they asked for. And so that's what he did that day in between driving the race cars. And through RV Wanderlust, which, as we showed you, is a much smaller blog with a smaller reach than the Ostinaut, we've still been able to get free stays at campgrounds for a week or 2 weeks.
We get invited. People reach out to us all the time and say, hey, we'd love to have you stay at our park. And when we do a review about the park, it's still an honest review. And we tell them that. Matter of fact, with the Ostinaut, one of the things that we often say is that if you invite us out to something and we go, one of the nicest things we might do is not say anything at all. So
we have a bad experience.
It's really about being honest.
All right, and then building a tribe. I mean, it's so amazing to come to an event like this, and we know so many of you already. Part of the lifestyle of RVing is that you don't get to connect face-to-face with your friends as often as you would staying in one place. And so through not only RV Wanderlust, but I read all of my friends' travel blogs as well.
We cyberstalk most all y'all.
Yes, and we're able to keep up. And this is valuable. It's really valuable to have the community. And you may not think, well, that doesn't have anything to do with my business or growing my business. But the reality is that without support from a community, we can't keep doing this. This lifestyle can be hard, really, really hard. And so don't discount the value of that. And then the fourth reason why we blog and why we highly recommend blogging is for search engine visibility. So imagine, if you will, just a static business website. It might have an about page, a contact page, a few product pages, and it doesn't really change other than that. It is really, really hard to get that static website to rank on a search engine for any of the topics that you would want people to find you for.
Because the way this works, I want you to think about this, and I like to use this analogy. Imagine that you go out and you build a mansion, a beautiful house on a really nice piece of property, right? And then you don't touch it for over a decade. It's going to dilapidate, moss is going to grow, there's going to be weather issues, and it's just going to crumble after a while. If you build a static website and you're not giving it any fresh content, what happens is that the spiders, the bots, the machines that are sent out by the search engines to search for a website, they'll index it the first time and say, oh, there it is, we want to have that in our records. But if you're not giving it any fresh content, once it's been indexed, they don't send it back out again. And so if you're consistently providing fresh content to your website or your blog, then the spiders could see that and they start visiting more regularly, and that actually helps to increase your search engine visibility.
And every time you write an article around a certain keyword, which a keyword isn't necessarily one word, it can be a phrase. So for example, on the Ostinaut, we have best burgers in Austin, murals in Austin, all these different topics about Austin that we're writing about. And it's like casting a hook out from our fishing boat. And each line, each article is bringing in more fish, more traffic. And so it's really valuable to put as many articles out there that are relevant and high quality to what you're talking about.
And yes, income. So we do get an income, like Brittany said, from the blogs. It's not been our focus, but it is very possible to make an income, and we've kind of done it in the reverse. So most people, I know Liz Wilcox, who's back there in the back, she is rocking it with her blog, but she's a new blogger, but she started with the purpose of making income. We've done the reverse. We've built the community. We've already got the visitors. We're going to start transitioning into income from our products.
Right, but the various ways that we make income, we've talked about a few of them already, but the first is just leveraging our blogs for in-kind value. And so it's really valuable to get 1 to 2 weeks of free camping at a place that we were already going. That's money in our pocket that we would be spending otherwise. And then through the Ostinaut, our main source of income is through ads. And so we do have Google AdSense on there because we have over 1,600 articles. And through Google AdSense, we are more than able to pay for the blog itself, which has been our main goal up to this point. Our hosting on the Ostinaut, because of our number of page views, is almost $300 a month now. And so when we were getting to that tier, we really had to kick in the ads in order to pay for it.
Right.
And then we also have just sponsors in the Austin area who we work with, and we provide them with space on the blog and also with social media posts, which they find very valuable.
All right, so this is that was our introduction. So we are getting to what we wish somebody had told us. And if you have your notebooks or notes, this is when you're going to want to take them out. I'm going to take off my shirt because it's getting hot up here.
All right, so the question that many of you might be wondering if you have never started a blog but you're thinking about doing it, these costs are for literally getting it live, basic costs. So for hosting, we recommend a hosting company called SiteGround, and their base plan for hosting starts at $4 a month. This is not going to be forever as you grow your blog. As I just mentioned, your hosting costs will rise, but that's the base price. A domain name is often about $15 a month.
Now, we're not talking about cars.com,
No.
okay, which you can spend millions for. We're talking about just something that you've made up for yourself.
The Astronaut, RV Wanderlust, pretty much any blog that you're going to be making up. $15 a year. You can use SiteGround. GoDaddy is another registrar for your domains. And then we highly recommend using WordPress for your content management system. It's the platform that everybody uses. One of the main reasons that I recommend it is because so many people know how to use it. And so as you need technical help from people like Jill Cisa, who is the person that I call when I need to do something technical on WordPress that I don't know how to do, she knows how to use it. And she has a team who also knows how to use WordPress very well.
All right, so now that you've got your hosting, you've got your domain, you've chosen to use your management system, you need to choose a theme. And a theme is something that kind of overlays on top of it.
It's the look and feel of your blog.
It's the look and feel of your blog. And these are 5 things that we think that every person who's starting a blog or has a blog should consider. And even if you're in the early stages and you don't have these things, you're going to want to maybe revisit that. And mainly because of number 1. Number 1 is mobile responsive. I'll tell you, like I said, I'm constantly watching Google Analytics. I've been doing it for years on the Astronaut. And when we first started, about 80% of the people who were reading our articles were on desktop. And I can see that data. That meant that they were sitting at home in their living room on a desktop computer reading our blog, okay? And about 20% were on tablets or phones. 6 years later, in 2018, it's about 70% of the people are on mobile devices, whether it's a tablet or phone, and only about 30% right now are watching it from desktop. So we're seeing this massive, and that's a significant shift over the course of time. People are going towards mobile devices for all of their information that they're consuming. And so when you're choosing a theme, make sure it's mobile responsive. Brittany will talk about that a little bit.
Well, and that just allows the content to automatically change based on the size of the screen that it's being viewed on. And so you've all been to those websites where you're trying to squeeze it on your phone and kind of moving it back and forth. Huge pet peeve, and people aren't going to stay on your blog. They're not going to visit it regularly. It's too much work. And so with a mobile responsive theme, your site will automatically change based on the device.
The navigation bar structure is something else to consider. So the navigation bars are the 2 bars that you see at the top where they have the categories and you can click a drop down. All right, you want to look for a theme that has at least 2 navigation bars, one sort of towards the center and one towards the top. And the reason for that is you want to be able to separate out your actual categories that you want people looking at from things like your about and your contact and your legal, the things that people aren't going to go to frequently. You want to be able to draw their attention to a secondary nav bar.
And then the placement of the social media buttons. So, I mean, Jill can put your social buttons wherever you want them. But if you're just starting, there's really no reason not to find a theme right out of the box that doesn't put the social media buttons front and center.
And this is really important. So back in the old days, and there's an advertising term that's called above the fold. If you haven't heard what that means, basically when we used to get the newspapers way back in the day, and they would come and land on your doorstep, you'd have them and they were folded in half, right? And the headlines were the big draw. So in the newspaper industry, anything that you didn't have to unfold the paper to see was called above the fold, and that was considered prime real estate, okay? The same thing applies online. On an online platform, anything that I don't have to scroll to see is considered above the fold, and that is prime real estate. So your social media buttons should always be above the fold, meaning I go to your website, I can see your social media buttons.
Yeah, and just be very conscious about everything that's above the fold and whether things need to be moved up or down based on their importance. And then just 2 other questions to ask as you're looking for a theme. Does it have free unlimited updates? And is there tech support for it? Because something will break, you will need help with something. And the danger of using a free theme that might look really nice is that when you have an issue, you have nobody to turn to. And with the free and unlimited updates, there's also security issues there if you're not updating your theme. So it's very important to make sure that you have that on lockdown.
All right, so branding matters from the beginning. What is your identity? We talked about going niche as you can while considering growth and potential changes. You know, it's interesting. We were at a talk with Cherie and Chris. I don't know if they're in the room right now, but I love them. So our blog name is RV Wanderlust, and that was a big mistake, okay? We don't plan on changing it, but we plan on traveling internationally, maybe without an RV. You know, so how does that apply to our current blog? We didn't really think about that as we were branding ourselves and making our identity. We have a lot of hopes and dreams for the future that don't necessarily involve an RV. They might involve an RV, they might not. But if we had had something like Gone with the Winds, who we're huge fans of, they can go anywhere and do anything. Famagogo, Technomadia, these are all great names. So be careful not to pigeonhole yourself as you're branding yourself into something that it might not be what you want to do 5 years from now.
Absolutely. And I absolutely love this point that a number of people have drilled home. I know I heard Heath talk about it in one of his RV Entrepreneur podcast episodes. And it's about not automatically saying to yourself, well, someone's done this before, and that means that I can't do it. And what Heath had to say was everybody has something to say on the topic that is their own unique view. You're going to have your own experiences, your own background and lessons that you can share and challenges. And it does set you apart from people who might also be writing about travel or whatever your industry is. However, I think it really is important to add a caution that you should know who you are and what sets you apart from other people. Even if it is another RV travel blog, it doesn't have to be just another one. And Liz, I have to go back to you because Liz, I wish that I could line everybody up on this stage who was here last year, maybe didn't even have an RV, didn't even have a blog, and tell you what each of them has done in 1 year. It would be so encouraging to so many of you. Liz has built a brand, a blog, products, and has started to make income from her blog in 1 year. And I think it's because she has built a brand, an identity that is unique to her. It's a little bit goofy. It's very authentic. Her book is called Tales from the Black Tank. I've never read anything like it. It's basically the worst RV fail stories that you would ever read, and you will laugh the whole time that you read it.
And I'm surprised we didn't end up in there just because we have some of those stories ourselves. But I will tell you, you know, this room is filled with people like that. I also want to point out Jonathan and Nadia Boello. They got here last year. These guys are the most humble people. They'll never tell you about themselves. But I actually thought about just bringing them up here and dropping the mic. Because it's folks like them that have really taken the RV Entrepreneur Summit and done something with it from last year. I'm really excited to see what happens next year.
So just the takeaway from this is don't think I can't do it because it's been done before. But please take the time to research your competition, see what sets them apart, and how you can differentiate yourself. If we had not done that with the Austinot, I don't think that we would be standing here today.
All right, so how do you structure your blog? This photo is actually one of my prized possessions, and it's on my phone. I took a photo of a hand-drawn piece of paper that I did with a ruler. This is actually the original design for the Austinot when we were in Seattle, Washington.
2011.
In 2011, I drew this on a piece of paper, and it's interesting because if you actually go to the Austinot at austinot.com, it's not very different from this. Obviously, it's morphed some. But the idea is that we had a long-term vision, that we were planning from the beginning, and you can't really see it, but over here you can see at the top, in my scriggly writing, it says discoveries, entertainment, culture, news, food. And we were trying to figure out our categories, where I wanted photos, where I wanted text, what I wanted on the site. So take the time as you're creating your blog to plan your long-term vision.
Mm-hmm. Oops. Okay, and as you're planning out the structure and the different categories, please keep in mind that you really want to make sure that your most important content is never, ever more than 3 clicks from your home page. And the closer to your home page it is, the better. And so your overall site architecture should be like a broad, shallow pyramid rather than a deep one. And the reason for that, again, goes back to your search engine visibility and the way that the bots from the search engine are going to be crawling your blog. And especially when it's a new blog, they don't go deep. Okay, it takes a while of putting the content out there for the search engines to invest the time and the bandwidth, to sending the bots deeper on your site. So it's really important to try and go broader rather than deeper.
Yeah, the key takeaway there is no more than 3 clicks to get to whatever article that you have on your site.
From the homepage. And then as far as just envisioning, if you're just starting out or your blog is still new, to use a tool like this. This is just a mind map. So in the middle, you have your niche or your topic. Those blue boxes around that are your categories. The green circles are your posts or your articles, and then there's some little orange ones that are series. And basically, this is a way of making sure that your categories are balanced. And so with a tool like this, you're gonna be able to see, okay, I have way too many posts around this category. That means that I should probably break it up into more than one category.
Right, and so to give you an example on this, remember, we're still right now talking about the stages of designing and creating your blog. We're not even to articles yet. But this is where you sit down and you write down, okay, this is who we are. So for us with the Ostnaut, the center would be Austin hyper-local, right? That's our niche and our topic. That's who we are. Then what is it we want to talk about? These are going to be our categories. We want to talk about food, drink, discoveries, culture, news, whatever it may be. Those are going to be the blue ones. Then what articles are we going to write? Those are the green ones. So general idea topics, and then on top of that, series. So like if you're going to do the best burger series in Austin or the funkiest houses in Austin.
Or my favorite national parks, but do it as a series rather than one roundup article.
Right. So now that you have all of this information, that can help to inform the categories that you're going to put on your nav bar for when you're creating your blog structure.
And as you're picking a theme as well, the theme will often restrict you to a certain number of categories. A maximum of 7 main categories is really a good best practice. Keep in mind that you can have subcategories under them too. So on the Ostnaut, we have entertainment, which is broken down into events, music, theater as our subcategories, and you can have articles connected to those as well.
All right, and then how do you structure it? So now you've got your long-term vision, you've done the broad, shallow, you know you don't want to go any further than 3 clicks away from the home page, you've mind mapped it out. We actually use an index card method with our clients, and when we've sat down and helped people to design or create blogs, this seems so 1970s, but it's so effectual. Effective. All right, so basically what we do is we get colored index cards. And we'll actually sit down with them and we'll write down the categories of everything that they have, and we'll lay it out on a table or on the floor, and we're actually able to shift these around and say, you know what, I don't like this here, let's move this around here, until we get it right to where we want it to be. And when it's there, we take a picture and we say, okay, this is it. Then we can go back into the design phase of the blog and set it up the way we've carefully and intentionally set it up.
And it's really important to keep in mind the way that we read as human beings in an English-speaking country. So starting on the left-hand side, reading to the right, I should be doing it this way. And so what's on the left side is important because it's where we start. But it's also very important what's on the far right side, because we naturally pause unconsciously before we go on to the next line. And so as you're arranging the order of things on your top nav bar with your about, your contact, maybe you have a sponsor link there. Maybe that should be on the far left side or the far right side. And the same thing goes with your categories. Be conscious about the order of them because of the way that we all read with our eyes.
All right, this is the meat and potatoes of this. So now you've got your blog, you've got your hosting, your domain, and all that. You've set it up, you've got the long-term vision, you've mind mapped everything out, and you're ready to start writing articles. For those of you who are already blogging and you've already gone through all those steps, pay attention to this section because this is where the rubber meets the road, okay? Now, You take the time to write an article. You've written a great article. You know that everybody's going to love this article, but they have to go to find your article. They have to go to see it, okay? And as well as you may have written the article, unless you do these next few steps, you're lowering the chances drastically of anybody actually going to see the content that you've worked so hard on. So I'm going to be going over the most important parts of any article, and I'll tell you, I have this meeting with my Astronaut bloggers every year, and every year I go over this next section. I want you to think about it like fishing, okay? The first thing, the most important thing of your entire article is the title of your article. And there's a very good reason for this. Think about this. When you go to a search engine and you type in a search for whatever it may be, Google or whatever search engine you're using brings up a list of results. Those are called the search engine results pages, or SERPs, okay? Those are the titles that you see, and then there's like a little description. But you know there's not photos there, right? It's just the title and a description underneath. There's some ads and there's some YouTube videos, but for the most part, you're looking for a website to look at. What you're reading is the title. Okay, so this is your chance to cast the line and say, I want you to read my article instead of the next guy's article. So you're casting your line out there with your title. Your title should contain the keyword of whatever it is that your blog article's about. It should be inside that title. This is your opportunity to cast the line, and it's the most important part of your article. I also will say that I tell my bloggers that over these next 4 steps that I'm going to cover, they should be spending 20% of their time. So if they're spending 100 minutes creating a blog article, 20 of those minutes are spent on these next 4 things, including the title. So
and this is just an example of one of our most popular articles over time as far as search engine traffic goes, is our guide to bat season in Austin.
yeah, this article gets typically anywhere from 20 to 40,000 page views a month by itself. All right, the next most important part is your meta description. So if you cast the line with your title, your meta description is setting the hook. For any of you fishermen out there, you know what I mean and know how important that is. You're getting that little nibble, now you've set the hook. The meta description is the describing portion that's underneath the title that you see on the search engines. So when you read somebody's title and then you look right underneath it to see what is this article really about, that is your opportunity to get them to finally click on that. And those are the only 2 things that people are going to see on the search engine results pages. They're only going to see the title, and they're only going to see the meta description. So if you can't get them to click on that link based on those 2 things, it doesn't matter how good your article is, nobody's ever going to read it. Does that make sense? So you want to take your time with your meta description by setting the hook, and you're going to limit that to characters. We're going to show you a slide here.
All right, so if you don't write anything else down, write down this tool. It's called Yoast SEO. That's spelled Y-O-A-S-T SEO, and it's a WordPress plugin. And so you're just going to download it to your WordPress site. It's free, and it's going to supply this box on the top left below where you're writing your article in WordPress. And this is how you tell the search engines, this is the title that I want you to display, and this is the meta description that I want you to display. Now, they're not obligated to put them on their search engine results, but they almost always do in my experience. This is awesome. I mean, we put new for 2018 that the meta description limit is 300 characters. But if you use this plugin, you don't need to know that because it automatically counts the characters for you.
But if you don't use the plugin, write that number down.
Absolutely.
You don't want to go over 300 characters, and here's why. And Brittany's going to show you this on this next slide, I mean, on this bottom corner here. But understand this, they get truncated. So first of all, if you don't enter a meta description, what the search engines will do is they'll pull from your article and put whatever they want up there as the description of your title, which is horrible.
Yeah, it could just be gibberish. It doesn't make any sense,
right.
So it doesn't draw anyone in.
And if you go beyond the 300 character limit, it just puts ... and you don't know what the rest is. So if you're intentional and you take the time to create your meta description, you're literally setting that hook to let them know this is what my article is about.
Right, so back to Yoast, you're able to put in your primary keyword that you're writing your article around. So this one is about citrus cocktails there on the left. And Yoast will evaluate your entire article, not just for the title and description, but for all different kinds of aspects related to your search engine visibility. It's such a valuable tool. Here on the bottom right, I know that you can't read it, but I searched for citrus cocktails Austin. Ours is there at the top, 10 refreshing citrus cocktails to try in Austin right now. Will someone please bring me one? And we wrote our meta description looking for the best citrus cocktails in Austin. We scoured the city so you can kick back and let refreshing notes of orange, grapefruit, lemon, and lime quench your thirst. Numbers 2 and 3 don't make any sense. If you were able to read them, they're not full sentences. They were not custom written. Google just took from the article and just grabbed pieces of it. And so for the purposes of using your meta description as a hook to draw people in, this is completely useless because they didn't take advantage of that opportunity.
And you know as well as I do that if you were searching for citrus cocktails in Austin and you saw these results, you're going to click on ours. The other ones just don't make any sense. All right, the next most important part, and I cannot stress this enough, and this is where I see most bloggers making their mistakes, is their very first sentence of text. The very first sentence in your blog article, it has one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to get the reader to read the second sentence of text. Okay? It sounds elementary, but I guarantee you, if I asked you how many of you have clicked on a link, gone there, read the first sentence of text, and exited out. It's not what I was looking for. It's not what I'm interested in. It didn't grab my attention. Okay? But if that first sentence of text can get you to read the second sentence of text, it will increase so many different ranking factors that you have no concept of how powerful it is, how much it will improve your blogging. One of the main ranking factors is time on site, okay? And one of the negative ranking factors is bounce rates and exit rates. So if you go to a website, read the first sentence of text and exit, that is a negative ranking factor, and the search engines will drop you down. But if you come to my site and I have hooked you because I got a great title and a great meta description, and now you come and you read the great first sentence of text and you are drawn to read the second sentence of text, chances are I've reeled you in and I've got you and I'm going to keep you for the length of that article. When that happens, your time on site metrics go through the roof. So to put this in perspective, the national average is somewhere around just under 2 minutes. On the Ostinaut, our average time on site is over 4.5 minutes. So more than double the national average.
And it goes so far beyond that as far as the value of getting them to read into your article, because another thing that we take really seriously is the internal linking structure. And so anytime that one of my writers mentions a topic or a business that we've written about before, I'm going to link to that article. I not only do it as a text link, and so say they mention South Congress Avenue, and so I'll link South Congress Avenue to our page with, they're all tags. It's the tag page for South Congress Avenue with all of our articles about that topic. But I also, under that paragraph, I do a little emoji arrow and I say keep reading, and I put the actual name of the article there. So I do it in 2 different ways, trying to get them to go to another page on our site.
Because that's another ranking factor. Besides time on site, it's page views per user. So if I can convert somebody who's come to my page to look at another page on our site, that's another positive ranking factor. Google, again, moves us up in the search engine results.
Right.
All right, so here's an example of a first sentence of text. This is from an article that I wrote. The topic was the best cheesecake in Austin. Basically, after we published this...
It's a hard life.
Yeah. After we published this, honestly, the folks who owned this company invited us over to their place and gave us free cheesecake because they were thrilled and they were booked for weeks. But this is what it says. It says, how does one of the founding members of USA Today's LA Bureau become the creator of the best cheesecake in Austin? By partnering with a Belgian powerhouse and following a dream. Okay? Hopefully, I want you to know, why did they partner? How did they get started? What is this dream? What did they do? And I'll tell you, this article did very well, but I was very intentional, and I took a lot of time on that very first sentence.
So switching a little bit from the search engine side to the 4th important element that's more for social media.
Yep.
which is the featured image. Okay, so we've seen this play out time and time again with the Ostinaut. If we don't spend enough time on that featured image that displays when we share the link on Facebook, and of course every time anyone else shares the link on Facebook, we're seeing the consequences. And in contrast, if we have an image that's high quality, that's colorful, that has people in it, because we as humans are drawn to photos with people in them, photos that elicit an emotional response, whether it's surprise or disappointment or excitement. Those are the types of featured images that we've seen do very well for our articles, and it's worth taking the time to find the right one.
So here's a featured image that we used. The title of this article was "The 10 Most Amazing Rooftop Photos of Austin That You'll Ever See." You can imagine we got a lot of traffic on that. We've got this great photo of two guys literally standing on a rooftop in Austin with no nets and the recognizable Frost Bank Tower there. And you can see our meta description at the bottom. Austin's downtown skyline is quickly changing, but it remains majestically photogenic. In this exclusive, we reveal 10 amazing rooftop photos of Austin.
We may have gotten a photographer in trouble with this article. All right, so our next section is awesome writers don't automatically equal awesome bloggers. And this is a lesson that we've learned, and I'm going to go over a couple ways that it's true. And so continuing on the visual front, I'm going to be talking about visuals here. When I get applications from really excited people who want to write for the Ostinaut, they rarely understand how important the visuals will be to what they're committing to. So they think that they're just going to write me an article and that's going to be it. But I'm also asking them to provide images for their articles, and oftentimes they had never done that before. They're not photographers themselves, and so it's always a challenge that we work through together. They always improve, and with these resources, there's a lot of ways to legally obtain images for your article. Please do not go to Google, type in a keyword, and grab an image to put in your blog. It is not legal. You're violating a copyright and taking away from the value that that photographer has put into it. Where to source images. So yes, you can take your own, and there are so many talented photographers among us. Definitely recommend putting a watermark on your photos because people will take them and use them for different purposes. You can use canva.com to put on a watermark. That's a free tool that I'm going to mention again if you didn't catch that. And then of course the various Photoshop, etc. can add a watermark. We also use a lot of images with permission from the owner. And so if we're writing about a business, we'll send them a private message on Facebook, we'll email the address on their website, and just ask them, hey, we're from the Ostinaut, we're writing this article, could we have your permission to use the photo? And if so, how do you want us to credit it? It could be the name of the business, or they could have had a photographer take it, and we really want to credit the right person. They may ask for us to link out to their website or the photographer's website. Obviously, always do that if they request it. Unsplash.com is my new best friend. So this is a website with beautiful royalty-free photos on all different topics. I just typed in Wanderlust here, and this is what came up. You don't have to attribute the photos. The photographers have given permission for you to use them without attribution. However, it's always just respectful to include it when you can. Another one, like I just mentioned, is Canva. So Canva is a way for you to create your own graphics. This is just my homepage on Canva with various projects there at the bottom. They have different templates specifically for social media, or I often use the custom dimensions. That option is at the top right. For our featured images on our blog need to be a certain size. And then Creative Commons is another option, and Flickr has Creative Commons. Google has an option on the filters at the very top where you can select Creative Commons, Wikimedia as well. And This is just a place where when the photographers designate it as Creative Commons, they're giving you permission to use it. However, there are different parameters that they put on. And so they may say, yes, commercial use is allowed, modifications are allowed. So you could use it as the background and put text on it or what have you. Or just all Creative Commons, you're free to use it for whatever purpose. Sometimes they do ask for attribution, so just make sure that as you're going to a specific photo that you want to use, that you scroll down to see how it was designated. And then you can embed photos from Instagram and Twitter. The reason not to do this is that if the person ever deletes their account, or if they delete that photo, you will have a big blank box on your website. And if you're not reviewing your articles regularly, that's just a poor user experience. However, in a pinch, I have used Instagram many, many times. Not only can you search for the username, if you're writing about a company or something like that, but Instagram also has the location feature, which is awesome, especially for places that may not have a username, or they're just a place, like a park could have a location on Instagram, and you could go in and search for that location and find a photo to share.
All right, so awesome writers don't automatically equal awesome bloggers. I've often said that, can you imagine if the Mona Lisa sat in somebody's basement in France in a bathroom, instead of hanging out at the Louvre? You can write an awesome article, and if nobody sees it, it's just an awesome article that nobody ever read. And so it's two different arts. One is writing, one is blogging. It's really good to get a combination of the two as far as your skill set goes. So now you've got your blog created, you've got the long-term vision, you've created all this stuff, you've written your awesome title in your meta description, and your first sentence of text is going to reel me in, and you've written the rest of your article, you're done, you're ready to publish, right? When do I publish? What time of day, et cetera. That's what we're going to cover. So how often should I publish and when? It really depends on what you're wanting to do, but what I will tell you about this is be consistent, okay? Monday is actually the best day to publish a blog article. That's the key takeaway. Most people read blog articles on Monday, and so you want fresh content. I would say that if you're only going to publish one article a week, you publish it on Monday morning, okay? But not only that, you want to be consistent, because what you're doing is, it's not that you're training your readers so much, you're training the spiders and the bots that are crawling the web to learn your patterns. They're machines, okay? And so what we do on the Astronaut is we publish every day, Monday through Friday, at 8 o'clock in the morning. And we don't sit there and wait for the moment to hit. We schedule it. So at 8 o'clock in the morning, that article goes live. And the bots have come to learn this. So what's really fascinating is that we've found that 4 minutes after we've published our article, Google already has it up on the search engine results pages, and many times up towards the top, because it's fresh content, and they trust us because we've got a lot of time on site, because we've got a lot of page views per user, because we have et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We've all these positive ranking factors. They're like, oh, Astronaut just published an article, page 1. Page 2, let's get it up there. And they want to be the first people to have it up. So you need to train them. So Monday is the best day. What time of the day are people reading their blogs? This says, when do users read blogs? The blue on the far left is morning, and then it goes to afternoon, evening, and night. So you can see that blog readership drops down as the day goes along. So if you're going to publish, you want to publish in the morning.
And
specifically, blog views by hour. So you can see here that although we publish at 8 o'clock in the morning, the peak for blog views by hour is actually 11 o'clock in the morning. Go figure. People are starting to go to lunch, right? They've been at work all day. They want to get on their phone. They want to play around. They're looking for something to read or something to do that afternoon. 11 o'clock is actually the peak time. So you're like, okay, Eric, if 11 o'clock is the peak time, why am I publishing at 8? remember, you're setting a precedent for the spiders to come and visit your site. That content's not going anywhere. The only people that are going to read those are your subscribers and your actual fanatics. Everybody else is going to find out about your articles through your marketing efforts, through social media, right? And so what we do is we publish at 8 o'clock, but then sometime between about 8 o'clock in the morning and 9:30 in the morning, we'll put our articles up on social media so that by the time they're getting ready to take their lunch break and they hop on Facebook, they're like, oh, check this out. Osnot just put out another article, and they're ready to read it. So it's all intentional. All right. This next section is kind of what I was talking about, the Mona Lisa in the basement. If you build it, they won't just come. You have to work at it. A couple of things we wanted to talk about was a blogging hustle. And
I want to brag on you.
Okay,
here.
go ahead, Brittany.
All right, so Eric and I have really different personalities. Eric is as extroverted as they come. I am actually really introverted. I don't like to ask people for things. I like them to find me and be happy by what I'm giving them. But Eric is not afraid to ask for what he wants. And it has made a huge difference for all of our efforts. So when we first started the Austinot, it's a baby blog. We're nobody.
Nobody knows who we are.
You would laugh if you read our first articles, and I actually have left them on there to keep myself humble because they are kind of ridiculous. One of them may have been about zombies. So, but Eric would go on Twitter. He would connect with the Visitors Bureau of Austin. He would find out who their Twitter manager was, and we went to coffee with her. And Eric asked her point blank, can I send my article to you every day, and you can share the ones with your audience that you want to? And by asking point blank, the answer was yes. And he did that over and over and over with all the influencers back then when we were just getting started.
I literally cyber-stalked them in a good way. So when we were first getting started, what I did is, like, we're in the Austin space. I went on Twitter. I found out who has the biggest followings on Twitter and who's active on Twitter. Who are they? What do they do? What do they represent? How can I get and support them and get behind them? What meetups are they going to? What networking events are they going to? I'm going to show up, and I'm going to introduce myself to them, and I'm going to tell them about the Austinot. I'm going to tell them that we're all volunteers, that we do this for the love of the city, which is true, and I'm going to say we're writing long-form content, and I think it's good content. Would you take a look at it? And they say, yeah, this is good stuff. I said, hey, we're just getting started. Would you mind sharing this for us? Tweeting it out for us or something like that. We'll give you a shout out. And they were like, sure, absolutely, I'd love to. And I was intentional about saying, hey, I'd like to take you to coffee. Can we go for pizza? Let's go for lunch. And getting to know these folks and taking the time to invest in them.
Very, very intentionally.
Very intentionally. And then they would introduce me to their friends. Before you knew it, I was getting invited to house parties. I DJ'd a house party. I had a DJ set. I'm like, yeah, I'll go. I'll even DJ. They're like, okay, cool. Come on. I was like, wiki. But hey, look, I had no shame in my game, but I connected with all of these influencers, and they got to know me. And I'll tell you, if it wasn't for those 2 years that I spent hustling, the Austinot would not be where it is today.
Right. And just remember, and Eric taught this to me, and I try to apply it to everything in life just because it goes so counter to my instincts, and that is the answer is no unless you ask.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for Russ to give me a Class B to drive through Europe. Russ, I want a Class B to drive through Europe. Sorry, throwing that out there.
So just don't be afraid to ask for what you know will propel your business to the next step. And there's ways that you can provide value too. Sometimes all it takes is you sharing that influencer's content over and over and over again, commenting over and over and over again. They will notice that you are there, and they'll remember your name and be more likely to hear you out with your request.
All right, so even though, what did we just say?
If you build it,
they just won't come. The power is still in the hands of the content creators. You are the content creator. Everybody out there needs content to share. Believe me. And if you're creating high quality content, if you're doing content that people are going to grab onto and share, they will. This photo that we took, the Huffington Post picked it up off our blog and shared it and linked back to us. Okay? You can imagine that that's a pretty good deal considering I took that with my iPhone in this little candy shop. And I want to talk about three things. I'm told we're needing to hurry up a little bit. Everybody's looking for content to share, but there's this concept of owning versus renting. Let me tell you something. How many people have been online and social media type sites prior to 2003? Okay, quite a few of you, right? How many of you did MySpace? Whole lot, yeah, right? And MySpace was king, right? It wasn't going anywhere. We all had MySpace accounts, and before that, AOL chat rooms, and before that, forums, right? And they were the be-all, end-all. And if you spent a lot of time investing yourself and your efforts in MySpace, MySpace is dead right now. So everybody's investing themselves in Facebook. But let me clue you in on something. You don't own Facebook, unless Mark Zuckerberg's in here. And you never know what's going to be the next big thing. Okay, you might say, well, Facebook's not going anywhere. You don't know what Google's up to, okay? And so there's a whole lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Bottom line is you don't own it. What you do own is your website. So we like this concept of a hub, and I'm going to let Brittany talk about that.
Just a wheel with the hub in the center being your website and all the spokes on the wheel, whether it's all your social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, your email marketing efforts. They're all pointing traffic towards your website because that's your property.
And so you spend your time working on your property and using these external tools for what they're for. I know that sounds crazy coming from me because I am a social media person and that's what I do for a living. But that's actually what I advise my clients. Let's get them to your website. Let's get conversions. Let's get some activity from this. This isn't just for fun. This is a business.
And then I know Eric already mentioned this, but everyone is looking for content to share. All the companies out there are looking for content. And that's why this whole movement of influencers is so big right now. And there's also this idea of micro-influencers, which is really buzzy. So don't think that you have to have tens of thousands of followers to be sought out as an influencer, especially if you follow our advice of defining your niche. You could be seen as a micro-influencer, which means that you may not have tens or hundreds of thousands of followers, but the ones that you have trust you and listen to you.
All right, so the content, evergreen content is golden. I told you we were going to come back to this. The bottom line is this. Evergreen content is content that people will always search for, okay? Non-evergreen content is content that you're creating that is really a one-stop shop, and people are going to search for it for a short period of time, and then they're never going to search for it again.
Or it's written to be time-sensitive around a certain event or date.
And there's nothing wrong with that if it's a big event. Like if some of you have already put out something about the RV Entrepreneur Summit 2018, that's great. It's time-sensitive. People are interested in it. You're going to get some hits. But let me tell you this. 2 years from now, nobody's going to be reading or looking for RV Summit 2018. Okay? But if you wrote an article about the 5 most important things that I learned in business.
This is hilarious to me because
I'm making up the title as I go.
When we were rehearsing last night, I came up with this title, and Eric's trying to say it again.
All right, say it.
So it was the 5 things that I've learned about business on the road.
There you go.
And you took it out of the RV Entrepreneur Summit, but it's not in your title. It's not in your meta description. You can talk about it in the introduction, how you were inspired by the summit, but by having a title that's not time sensitive, that is evergreen, that article is going to have a longer shelf life.
Really
and we've done this on the Ostinaut from the very beginning. We've looked for the evergreen content. I have restaurants sending me emails all day long about their new happy hour menu, how this new menu is being released. You know, all of these really time-sensitive things that my competitors are writing about, I don't write about them. I go out and ask my writers to do a general feature about that business that may mention the new stuff, but most of all, it may be about the business's history and things that are evergreen, that are always going to be true and relevant. And 1,600 articles later, that's how we have the page views, is by keeping a focus on the evergreen.
And then just very quickly, you need a system for refreshing your content. Brittany was going to talk about this, but I'm going to cut it short. The bottom line is this. Go back to previous articles, try and develop a system. So ProBlogger, who Brittany and I are big fans of, they have this system where they go back 6 months, they also go back a year. So if today is February, 24th? February 24th, they're going to go look at every article that they published February 24th of last year and make sure that everything is up to date on those articles and everything is refreshed, and if there's any changes that they need to make. Develop that system early. Don't wait until you have 1,600 articles to get to the
Yeah,
point
because
where
I'm playing catch up
we're
now.
playing catch up. Oh, we're almost done.
Yeah.
Right there.
All right, so the consumption of information is not static over time. We talked about how the shift between our desktop views versus our mobile views. And also there's a big shift right now with the way that people are consuming content. It's not just text. We're streaming on Facebook. It's video. That's how people want to consume the content here. 5 years ago, someone would be in this audience live blogging this
And live
event.
tweeting. I've done them both.
And live tweeting this event because that's the way that the content used to be consumed. It's not anymore. And so it's really important to just keep that in mind, to try and stay on top of those changes and be where your readers are, the way that they want to consume your content.
And one of our last slides here, our lives are public property. In case you don't know us, you can find us just by walking by our rig, right? RVwanderlust.com on the front. It's pretty funny. We have pulled into sites before, and there's been 4 or 5 people standing at our site waiting to meet us, and they know the name of our cat. So it is a trade-off. It is a trade-off, just so you know. If you're going to make yourself a blogger and you're looking to be credible and an influencer in the space, understand that you give up a little bit of your privacy. And a lot of folks, they do this not for that reason. They want privacy, and they don't want people coming up to their site. But understand this, I'm sure, and I don't want to put people by name because I don't want to put them, but you know who they are in here, the more prominent RV bloggers. They get hassled. They get people knocking on their door. They're not even done putting their black tank sewer hose up, and people are patting them on the shoulder, wanting
over
a
their
hand.
shoulder.
Yeah, shaking their hand. So it is a trade-off. Your lives do become public property, and with that there's an importance to your influence, okay? Because if you are a prominent RV blogger, and like I said, we get invited to come stay out at RV parks for free all the time. What if I say something really bad about an RV park? I could do a lot of damage, you know, and that's not our hearts. We're actually very biased. We want to see the good in everyone. We know what it is to have a small business. We get that, you know, and sometimes the best thing we can do is say nothing at all.
Yeah, but we do take that responsibility very seriously. And so I do censor myself a lot of times on social media if I'm frustrated or angry about something or a special brand, because I'm representing brands as an influencer, and I don't want the heat of the moment to impact them as a brand and to impact the relationships, the trust, and the credibility that I've built with them.
All right, I forced Brittany to put this slide up. This is actually what her desktop looked like.
It doesn't always look like this.
Right before we did this presentation, I said, babe, you need to screenshot that because her desktop never looks like this. But it takes time. That's one of the things you need to realize. If you're going to do this and you're going to do it right, it takes time. It's not just about writing your travel log and putting up a couple pictures and hitting publish. If you're doing that, you're not looking to be a blogger. You're creating an online diary. And if that's what you're wanting to do, more power to you. Knock it out of the park. Have the best diary in the world. Hand it off to your kids and your grandkids. But if you're looking to blog and be seen by the search engines, you have to put in the work that it takes, and it takes time.
And we had to make a decision that we were going to blog. There was a day that Eric told me we are going to publish an article 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, and we're starting next week. And we never went back. We have published those articles every week for 6 years. And that's what it takes, is that consistency. You have to decide to do it and make room to do it. You don't have to start with 4 articles a week. That was kind of a lot.
So now we're moving into this blogging transition, and Brittany really wants to speak on this because it's very near and dear to her heart. So I'm going to let her.
Yeah, I mean, we're all in flux, okay? I may not be building a blog today, but my business doesn't stay static, and what I want to do doesn't stay static. And so my biggest transition is because I have a baby, and this baby has changed my life. He's changed my rhythms and my routines, and I'm now having to rethink really our whole model and the whole way that we spend our time. So we are going through a transition. Basically, right after we leave the RV Entrepreneur Summit, we're buckling down and getting into some building ourselves. And we are taking our blogs, which were not created to make money, and we are monetizing them this year. And I am really excited because the community is there and the articles are there. I mean, that's way up here. And what I'm hoping is that the monetization is going to come up right like that, because we're not building them at the same time. And we're going to be getting into some more affiliate marketing this year. We're going through Michelle Schroeder's course. Please write down her name. Her business is Making Sense of Sense. And she's a full-time RVer. Okay, and she has built an amazing website and business on affiliate marketing, and so we're going through her course right now. We never stop learning and transitioning.
And the bottom line is time. So people ask me, you know, what is it you're looking for? Everybody in here is at a different level of income. Some of you are rolling in beautiful buses. Some of us are in tents right now, hoping to get an RV. Look, we're all the spectrum, but we all have the same amount of time each day. And for me, time is precious. It's the most precious thing we have because we never get it back, right? So people say, Eric, you only work from 7 in the morning till noon every day, Monday through Friday. You get 2 weeks paid vacation and you never work on weekends or holidays. You want more time? Yes. Yes, I want more time. I'm not greedy for money. I'm greedy for time. And I'm very, very greedy for time, and I want more of it. So we are looking to make this transition.
So I know everyone wants to get to lunch, so let's just touch on this really quickly. Last year, we put this offer out there, and it's still available today. If you go to our Facebook page for Connection, which is our online marketing company, the Connection is spelled right there because it's kind of a bizarre spelling, please ask questions from us on that page. We're not going to charge you anything for it. All we ask is that rather than sending a private message to the page, that you post your question to the page so that other people can benefit from the conversation. And that's not relevant just for right after the article. We have friends who we made last year who have come back to our page 11 months later and asked questions, and I love it. We want to help our tribe and our community in that way.
Yeah, and so one more thing on this. Obviously, we did not leave time for questions, and that's on purpose. From 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., I think in Mockingbird, in Mockingbird Hall, Brittany and I are going to be there for an hour, and we're going to be hosting a workshop. We encourage you to bring your computer, your notes, and what we're going to do is we're going to post in the group. It might already be in there yet. It is in there? Okay, so in the group, in the RV Entrepreneur Summit group, there's a link where you can ask questions, any questions that came up during this session. Brittany, please do that during your lunch break, because Brittany and I are going to read those over. We're going to find out what the most common questions are. We're going to answer those questions at the beginning of the workshop, and then we might even pick on a few of you who have blogs and say, okay, go ahead, critique my blog. And we'll bring it up on the main screen there in Mockingbird Hall and just point out some things that you're doing well, some things that we would change, and give you some free advice. Our consulting fees are pretty high, so take advantage of this because it's free. You already paid for it. It's on the RV Entrepreneur Summit.
Alyssa made a post in the RV Entrepreneur Summit group about asking questions.
Yes.
We really just want to answer the most common questions because our time is so short. We're here for the rest of the weekend.
Right.
So you can come up and ask us questions.
So that's it. We hope we didn't bore you and you had a good time. So.
We really love you guys.
Yeah,
we want
love
you
guys.
to succeed. We really do.